Okay, what we got here is Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson's testimony at the Emergencies Act. This is published on October 18th, 2022 by CTV News. I'm not going to record the sound. I'm going to watch it and report back. So I'll be right back. I'm at 8 minutes and 39 seconds. All I got out of it was that it seemed to take a long time for the mayor and the chief of police to talk about what was happening. The trucks had already arrived. They knew that there was more coming. And the chief of police and the mayor hadn't spoken. But they eventually did. Okay, and then what we're going to get now is the transcript of a conversation between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Jim Watson, Mayor of Ottawa. Okay, I'm at 9:12. We're on to a transcription of a phone conversation between the Prime Minister and Jim Watson. So PM phones, "Hi Jim," and Jim says, "Hi Prime Minister," and the PM says, "How are you doing, my friend? This has not been an easy day." And JW, so there's PM and JW. JW, "No, but I have to say, I watched your presser. You hit it out of the park and you hit all the right notes. This is one of the best press conferences you have done. These people had their time. We need to move on. We have been trying to get this across to the chief of police." So maybe there's some question about whether or not he ever did talk about it with the chief of police. But I'll have to go through it because I'm doing this fresh. Probably a mistake. I don't know. The person asking questions of the mayor, I don't know what her name is. She wants to put out the statement that these are summaries of calls. They're not transcripts. Well, it's a dialogue. Okay. Maybe it's been adjusted in some way, but to call this a summary and not a transcript, it reads very much like a transcript. Let's put it that way. It's all a bit rambly, but eventually there was conversation between him and the chief of police. And it wasn't so much, this is one of the best conversations we've done. These people had their time and need to move on. We've been trying to get this across to chief of police. And now in the testimony, he's saying, so we're asking you, what's the game plan? That's all he can say that he's really done, is just ask them the game plan, which is all he's able to do. He doesn't direct the police. But you would think that if he had gotten on top of it and started speaking, then he might have been able to, influence public perception a bit. Or maybe that's against the laws. Maybe that's against the rules too, I don't know. Better get back to that one later. There are a lot of redacted portions. Anyway, so the mayor says the people had their time and need to move on. We've been trying to get this across to chief of police. And redacted portion, PM says, nobody had any doubt what my position is on the whole thing. The statement is redundant, but I'm happy to give it. And then the mayor says, the turning point is the Terry Fox statue, the tomb, Shepherd of Good Hope. People just can't fathom how this is acceptable. I just got to wonder if he was around talking about what's acceptable when they were yanking down statues of two different queens. Statues of two different queens were ripped down and in front of the police. One of them was particularly poignant because the queen's head popped off. A bunch of yahoos heard about this whole thing, truckers pulling into town and all that. It's astounding how little violence there was from them. The streets were safer when they were there than when they weren't. Anyway, the turning point is the Terry Fox statue. Yeah, I don't know that much happened. I think that they, it wasn't great that they went in there, But, he's not the Virgin Mary, is he? The tomb. If that happened, I can promise you that That's the tomb of the fallen soldier, right? I can promise you that the people who went and pissed on the tomb or whatever it was, that's what I think that they said. Urinated on the tomb. That's what they said, right? We're not guys that, lost salaries for a month and invested that much diesel fuel to drive all the way to Ottawa. They didn't show up there to do this. The level of analysis from the regular newscasters is appallingly poor. There's at some point, there's letters to the editor and, this sort of thing where, it wouldn't be up to me to point this out, right? Yeah, of course, it was a huge protest. A lot of lousy people showed up there and did probably a lot of awful things. Okay, Prime Minister, and all the stories like yelling at people for not wearing a mask. For wearing a mask. Yeah, I can imagine that. But at some point, I've had personal experience with that actually, but it's probably not all that significant. But I've had I guess they were yelling at me. They were more like they were yelling across the table, holding up a beer that giving me shit for not wearing a mask, and I just said, well, it's the freedom that's the important thing. It's not whether you wear a mask or not. They're telling you to wear a mask. You don't like it. Now you're telling me to wear a mask. I can't wear a mask. It's the same thing, right? And no, they said, okay, I got it. And they were just totally sensible about it. But yeah, I did get a little shit for that. And I imagine that in some situations it could have been really bad. So I don't doubt that. But at some point, some of these people have to ask, what am I doing in this crowd? Yeah, that's right. Okay, Justin said something half-assed smart. It's funny. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point some yahoos did show up at the Shepherd of Good Hope and steal some food. But I think that when it comes down to it, what you're going to find out is that the homeless in Ottawa did better when the truckers were there than they were before the truckers were there. They ate very well through the whole thing. Did a couple yahoos do that? Yeah, maybe. I don't imagine it would be the guy that gave up a month's wages and invested that much time and energy to drive across the country that did that, right? I really doubt it. But it's an inconvenience for the city and a sacrilege. So is a sacrilege a reason to bring in the the War Measures Act? What is it? They invoke the Emergencies Act in this case. Well, sacrilege isn't, because if sacrilege is one, what happened to the churches in Canada in the last couple of years? I think there's 40 of them, really beautiful, some of them churches, burnt down sometimes in the middle of the biggest heat wave in Canadian history. They're burning churches down. Yeah, but we did endure some yahoos on the Terry Fox statue on the tomb, Shepherd of Good Hope. Yeah, I'm sure that happened. There was no Emergencies Act when those other sacrileges were taking place. You have to remember what this thing is ultimately about. Were they justified in invoking the act? Was there actually a national security risk that couldn't be met by traditional police powers? And the answer to that is already no. We know that no, because before the Emergencies Act was brought in, the truckers had already started to leave. And in fact, were prevented from leaving by the police. They weren't allowed to leave. They wanted to leave. They had an agreement. Tamara Litch had an agreement, and she's the actual boss of the thing. Tamara Litch is the boss of the Freedom Convoy. She made an agreement, and a lot of the truckers were leaving, had already left. And then the police wouldn't let them leave. And then, whatever it was, a day or two later, the Emergencies Act was invoked. This is factual. It's not from this program, but what I just said is factual. The police didn't let the trucks leave. Okay, but you have to admit the mayor of Ottawa was in quite a position there, and so it's interesting to hear what he's saying. Okay, so the chief of police said it's so volatile but kept under control so far. Trucks are starting to leave, but some dickhards chained themselves to this. Unfortunate for people living in that. Yeah, no, sorry, it's I can't read it. Okay, so it's interesting. The mayor's in a position where he's realizing that he doesn't want to be too confrontational. And he said that they're looking for a fight. And so I think that was probably part of the decision-making process that the police went through, too, when they decided that they weren't going to enforce bylaws, like a noise bylaw. The noise bylaw, that was a failure on the part of the police. The noise bylaws should have been enforced from the beginning. Maybe selectively, just find the worst one of them. Were they really, the thing about the trucker convoys, it's so impressive to have a bunch of trucks show up in a city. Like that, they prove that. So but it's also really intimidating. And so that's in a way a sort of a sense of violence. So people would have been afraid about enforcing the laws because these guys all had keys to big trucks. Anytime that you go an intimidating route or a hostile route or like that, which is so much fun, you set yourself up for problems later. The horns were ridiculous. I think really what he's saying is that he thought that they were so volatile that if they gave out noise bylaw infraction tickets, that they would have become violent. That seems to be the rationale that the mayor's using. Or to defend his own actions or to defend the actions of the police, I don't know. But because what other excuse do they have for not issuing tickets like crazy and saying like, look, we've got your license plates, we're giving you these tickets and you're going to have to pay them. So blow your horns all you like. Honestly, we'll come and give you another ticket, and as soon as it's legal to give you another one. That's it. The police failed. Big time failed. It's amazing how much history that we're going to find packed into this. These hearings are historic for Canada simply for the reason that the Emergencies Act has never been invoked before. We don't know what's supposed to happen. We know it's supposed to happen. They're supposed to have these sort of committees and inquiries that in the end just come to an opinion. But the thing is that if it goes badly here, then there's a lot of other legal cases against the Canadian government that will go badly for the Liberals as well. I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion, but there's nothing foregone about it because it's already been established that they didn't have justification for it. It wasn't such a serious national security threat. It was a scary one, especially for the people in Ottawa, obviously. But nobody was killed. There was, because it's the Western tradition to take the freedoms very seriously because we know what people who take away those freedoms can do to other people. They take away your freedom to talk and to assemble and to travel and everything else. And things go poorly. And so we take this kind of thing quite seriously. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm getting scattered. What are we talking about? Noise violations. Maybe they did that, but I can't believe that. Okay, what I can't believe is that the cops couldn't go down there and talk to those guys in a way that would encourage them not to blow the horn. Just talk to them. Just talk to them and explain the impact that they're having on the people around them. really make put out like kind of a charm offensive. There's a lot of police officers. They could have had a lot of them just going from truck to truck, getting to know people, getting to know their names, and trying to talk sensibly to them. Those guys that drove the trucks weren't going to jump out of the truck and beat up a person that had just come to talk to them. They could have sent bylaw officers to do that. They would say, though, no, the bylaw officers aren't trained to deal with violence, right? Which I guess is a reasonable argument, but so they would have had to have police escorts, or the police could have done it themselves. Who was it that went out to these guys and tried to talk to them? You hear this kind of proceeding, and you just wonder, how much difference it could make if somebody asked questions like that. Like, who was it that approached the truckers? It would have just been the police. And I bet that it was timid. Oh no.
You've been talking like enough.
Okay, I'm going to summarize. The mayor's telling Justin, we need more resources. All right, I'm done. Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson's testimony at the Emergencies Act. Inquiry, isn't it? It's a public inquiry. The Emergencies Act, public inquiry. No assignment of blame is supposed to be happening here precisely, but if you figure out what happened, then the blame will naturally fall one direction or another. And the lawsuits that are to come after this are going to be a serious problem for the Liberal Party. That's for sure. That's for sure at this point. Want to bet?